Welcome into the NFL opening line report. Drew Martin, Teddy Covers, getting you ready for Championship Sunday. Taking a look at both sides and totals here, guys, where these lines are heading into kickoff on Sunday. Only 3 games left in the NFL season. We're going to actually hit all 3 in some sort of way here with the main event of the show. Teddy Covers at Teddy_Covers on Twitter. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. Teddy, welcome on in, buddy. Happy Monday morning to you.
Hey, great to be here, Drew. As you mentioned, 3 games left in the season. We have the 2 conference championship games this Sunday, and then obviously the Super Bowl with all the hype. And before we get into the 2 games this week, I do want to talk about bettable lines right now for Super Bowl 58. These numbers are basically hot off the presses in the global books. I'm sure there are books in Vegas that are going to have comparable numbers as well. But this is what we're looking at right now when it comes to potential Super Bowl 58 spreads. 49ers -3 versus Kansas City versus the Chiefs. 49ers -2 versus the Ravens. Ravens -5.5 versus the Lions. Chiefs -4.5 versus the Lions. So those right now are the look-ahead lines for next week. And yes, I will reference them on next week's show. And of course, we do want to talk, obviously, we're going to break down both games in detail. I'm going to talk about the Lions. I'll talk about the Ravens, talk about the Chiefs and the 49ers. We do want to talk a little bit about WagerTalk at the top today. Wednesday, Customer Appreciation Day. Daily plays only $5 on Wednesday. So be sure to check out WagerTalk.com this week. $5 Customer Appreciation Day on Wednesday. So check it out this week over at WagerTalk.com. There's my hype at the intro, Drew. We'll give him some info. We'll give a promo. Now let's break down some games.
Absolutely. And huge shout out to everybody who commented below on last week's video. We'll answer some of those questions at the end of this show. And feel free to comment below on this week's video, and we will answer them on next week's show. Teddy already talked about the look-ahead lines are something that will be a factor for next week's show, getting you ready for the Super Bowl. So stay tuned for that. But Teddy, no sense in burying the lead any longer. We got 2 games on Sunday here, my friend. 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. First game up, Kansas City and Baltimore. It will be followed 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. The Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. We'll hit them right now, opening line report style. Starting here with the AFC up first, Teddy. 319, 320, Kansas City Chiefs, Baltimore Ravens. We are seeing Ravens mostly -3 with juice as we're talking Monday morning, guys. There are 3 in the hooks out there, Teddy, at a couple shops. 44.5 being the prevailing total in this one. I'll throw it over to you. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kansas City Chiefs at the Baltimore Ravens for the right to play in the Super Bowl. What are we thinking AFC Championship opening line report?
All right, let's talk about my powering numbers have Baltimore -2.5 against Kansas City for this game. I've been a little bit off market on the Chiefs. I was last week, and that was worked out in my favor. And I still don't look at Baltimore as being significantly better than Kansas City. The betting markets do. There was a 3.5. I mean, this line opened 3.5. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's where it opened. It was 3.5 across the board last night. Today, we're seeing mostly 3s with juice, 3 -20. There still are 3.5s out there. And let me make this really clear. Monday morning, if you want Baltimore, lay -3. If you want Kansas City, take +3.5. Both lines are available right now. And if you don't have access to both lines right now, it's telling you that's a lesson for you, is that you need to open more accounts, because if you don't have accounts at every legal sports book in your state, you're missing the opportunity right now to take +3.5 or -3, whichever one you want works. Now, certainly we talk about Kansas City, and I'm going to start here talking about KC. I'll throw back to you, and then we'll come back and talk about Baltimore. But Kansas City, the questions about the offense, I'm not going to say they were answered in the win against Buffalo, but this has been an underachieving offense for extended stretches this season. It was not an underachieving offense in Buffalo this past weekend. Mahomes only 6 incomplete passes, didn't throw a pick. they were able to run the football effectively, and that's the whole key for Kansas City right now. We talk about Mahomes and his success throwing the football down the field to Kelsey and Rashee Rice and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Well, the key to this offense right now is Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They combined 17, $128 rushing. Don't know if that's necessarily going to be easy against Baltimore. It's worth noting KC only went 1 of 5 on fourth downs, but it's also worth noting they were never in third downs. Only had five third downs the whole game. Yards per play, Kansas City 7.7, Buffalo 4.7. They outgained the Bills by 3 yards per play. Yards per pass, Kansas City 9.3, Buffalo 4.8. They basically doubled them up when it came to yards per pass. They were the only team to win and cover in the divisional round that lost the turnover battle. Defense didn't force any. The offense turned it over once. That said, they avoided the mistakes. Penalties. I'll put it to you this way. The team with the fewer penalties covered every single game this past weekend. Kansas City only 2 penalties for 15 yards in the win at Buffalo. Now, we haven't seen all that much between these two teams. They played once in the playoffs in 2010. That doesn't matter. In the modern era, the most recent regular season matchup was week 2 in 2021. That was Baltimore 36, KC 35, a game that came down to the wire. When you hear about Patrick Mahomes talking about Baltimore, look, Mahomes won a true road playoff game the first time. And now he's 13-3 as a starting quarterback in the postseason. Mahomes talking about Baltimore. There's no weakness there. It's going to take our best effort. Defense, offense, special teams, they do it all. It's always a great challenge, and that stadium's going to be rocking. So we're excited for the challenge. Of course, Mahomes was able to survive that first road test in the postseason. His quote, "First of all, this is a great environment," talking about Buffalo. It really is. We did hear it all week about playing a road game. We're here to prove a point and show that we can play anywhere. Of course, worth noting this quote from Andy Reid. I don't know that I love this quote from an underdog going on the road again the next week. Quote, now of course I just lost it. Quote, all-time classic again. Anytime we play Sean's teams, it comes right down to the wire. All-time classic. Now they're going on the road again. And in KC, they scored 5 of their first 6 possessions. They kneeled down at halftime. Was the only one they didn't score. They didn't punt until the fourth quarter. They never owned the game because the defense got gashed a little bit. And they're 3-2 in AFC title games with Mahomes under center. This year is different. No Kansas City team in any recent season has been higher than 7th in scoring defense or yards allowed per game. This year, Kansas City top 2 in both of those categories. So it's certainly, we talk about defense wins championships. Chiefs defense made the plays when they had to yesterday at Buffalo, and it's certainly a defense that has the appearance of one that could be capable of hanging around in Baltimore as well. So Kansas City in a unique role this week. I'll throw it back to you, Drew, before we talk about Baltimore.
Sure. Good breakdown there, Teddy. And we'll talk the 1-seed Ravens. I want to just add something on what Teddy talked about. Yards per play for the Kansas City Chiefs, guys. Teddy correctly pointed out it was 7.7, a little bit more per play. But I want to point out the fact, Teddy, they had 4 kneel downs. You talked about the kneel down before halftime,
Yep.
And then 3 at the end of the game. That's almost 10% of the plays that they ran. So you take those 4 plays out, they were over 8 yards per play. The Chiefs, you talked about just 5 third downs. That offense could not be stopped, man. It was pretty, just some of those stats that, they almost get like exponentially better, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, or is some of that, the Bills and being beat up on defense? That's part of the handicap here, guys. Now going up against the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL in the Baltimore Ravens, going to be a big part of this matchup. But back over to you here, Teddy. Chiefs, Ravens. What's your look here on Baltimore side?
And of course, Patrick Mahomes now 9-1-1 against the spread in his previous 11 tries as an underdog. And of course, this is a Kansas City team that, we've talked all year about their defense, that, the offense isn't good enough this year. Offense isn't good enough this year. Well, the offense was good enough yesterday. We'll see if that works against Baltimore. Now, the Ravens, they kind of came out and didn't click. They look like a team that hadn't had their starters in the field for a couple of weeks. Same story with San Francisco off the bye week. The two teams off a bye both failed to cover in the first half. 10-10 at the half against Houston. Of course, they allowed a punt return touchdown. It wasn't like the Texans moved the football against that Ravens defense. And the second half for Baltimore, pretty dominant. 24-0 second half run out, touchdown drives of 93, 78, and 55 yards. And everything worked. I mean, the Ravens outrushed the Texans 229-38. Lamar and Justice Hill and Gus Edwards and Dalvin Cook, 42 carries for 229 yards. That's winning playoff games. 8 different receivers caught a pass from Lamar Jackson. The playmakers were all there. OBJ and Zay Flowers and Nelson Aguilar, Rashard Bateman. Isaiah Likely scored a touchdown. He's been on fire for Baltimore. So, the offense clicked on all cylinder, turnover-free game. Defense had 0 sacks and created 0 turnovers. That said, they only gave up 10 first downs. And frankly, Houston, they didn't play well. They didn't have much left in the tank. And finally, the Texans' wide receiver cluster injury problem at wide receiver caught up with them. And of course, the Texans had 11 penalties, only 3 for Baltimore. Ravens 4 or 5 in the red zone. Texans didn't get to the red zone. It's only the second victory in 5 playoff games for Lamar Jackson. He was well aware of that fact after the game. Quote, I heard that. I don't even got to hear it. I see it, but it is what it is. I really don't care about what people say. Those guys just had our team's numbers in the past, but it is a different team. Worth noting, Lamar Jackson did something on Saturday that no quarterback has done since at least 1948. I don't know why it says at least 1948. I don't think the databases go back any further than that. In the regular season or the playoffs, with at least 2 touchdown passes, 2 touchdown runs, 100-yard rushing, and 100 passer rating in the same game. That's where Lamar is right now. I love the quotes from the other coaches. D'Amico Ryans, quote, credit to Lamar. He made a ton of great plays. That's why he's the MVP. Nelson Aguilar talking about Lamar Jackson, quote, there's something in him right now. It's been in him all year, but there's something really in him right now, and I'm with it. I'm with it. Patrick Queen, Ravens linebackers, talk about the big contract Lamar signed this last offseason, something to prove. That's why he's so hungry. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it the way he talks, the way he's acting right now. He's got a lot to prove, and he wants to prove it. Talk about home field edge. Baltimore's home field edge, fairly strong in the opener. John Harbaugh, quote, I thought our fans were incredible. Man, it was deafening out there. Not like Kansas City can't play on the highway. It's not like there wasn't a home field edge in Buffalo yesterday. That said, Detroit's home field edge has been really strong this postseason. Baltimore's has been as well. And of course, Baltimore only the 4th team since the merger between the AFL and the NFL in 1970, where the modern era of the NFL begins, to have a first-team All-Pro quarterback and the number 1 scoring defense in the league. There's only 3 teams that have done that before. The 72 Dolphins, the 78 Steelers, the 96 Packers. Again, that's the first-team All-Pro on offense at the quarterback position and the number 1 scoring defense. Those 3 teams, 72 Dolphins, 78 Steelers, 96 Packers, all went on to win the Super Bowl. Drew?
I like that stat, Teddy. Yeah. Lamar Jackson, the Boynton Beach High School, Florida product. Hey, if you guys are looking for some entertainment, Google Lamar Jackson high school football highlight tape. But Teddy, yeah, one more thing here.
We didn't talk about where this line's going. And I kind of talked about both teams, and I never got to the whole point of the show. I expect this line to bounce 3.5 all week. I don't know if it's going to land 3.5. I don't know if it's going to land 3. I think there will be some books offering 3s and some books offering 3.5s. If you had to, gun to my head, I got to pick. I'd say it closes Ravens 3, not 3.5. I think there will be some Kansas City support plus the hook. Where we're seeing the action is on this total. Total opened as high. I mean, there was one book opened 50. I don't know what they were doing. But mostly we saw 45.5s, 46. Now we're seeing 44.5s, and a prominent 44 just popped up. So we are seeing under money for this game right now. Again, I don't think it's going to go a whole lot further, but that's the initial big betting move off the opener has been under, not side.
For what it's worth, Teddy, I've noticed Chiefs games down the stretch of the regular season, they were an under trender all season. They've been taking under money off the open. So you think that's just kind of like a carryover?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Kansas City's in theory, Kansas City's been an under team this year, and the markets are reacting accordingly. Despite the fact that the offense clicked on all cylinders yesterday, I think the betting markets are looking at that as being Buffalo being riddled with defensive injuries more than Kansas City having turned a season of mediocrity on offense into an elite performance, even with Mahomes and his success rate.
First game down, second game coming up next here, guys. This is the NFL opening line report each and every Monday on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Please give us a comment below. It helps the algorithm. Let us know where you're watching from, any questions, what you're looking to bet, where you agree, where you disagree. All is welcome. And please smash that like button if you're liking the content. Teddy Covers, Drew Martin here, breaking down the next game, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Teddy, we get the Detroit Lions heading on the road for the first time in the NFL playoffs this season at the San Francisco 49ers. Teddy, another game here right around a key number. -6.5 is available. -7 is available as well. 51 being the total. Lions at Niners for the NFC Championship game, Teddy Covers.
And much like for the first game, Kansas City, Baltimore, where my powering number was 2.5 and the markets were 3.5 at the open, my number came short here as well. And it's not like I'm down on San Francisco. I've got the 49ers power rated as the best team in the league by a full field goal, I believe. Or I think down to 2 or 2.5 now. But I got San Fran a good notch two ahead of everybody else. My number still only came 5.5 for this ball game. We saw 6.5s and 7 at the open, mostly 7s. We're seeing mostly 7s right now, although there are some 6.5s, both here in Vegas and in the global book. So again, we have one of these games where if you want to lay 6.5 with San Francisco, you can do it. If you want to take 7 with Detroit, you can do it as long as you have outs. So if you don't have options to both of those lines today, Monday morning, open more accounts. It's just that simple because both lines are currently available. Total, we've seen a little bit of under money. There were 52s and 51.5s at the open. We're seeing 51s now. That being said, the prevailing opening number was 51, and we're still seeing 51s right now. So total hasn't done a whole lot. Side not doing a whole lot. We have seen a little bit of Lions money, not a ton. And like I said, much like Baltimore KC, I do expect this line to be bouncing around that 6.5, 7 range all week, which means there's enormous liability for the sports books. If the Ravens win by 3, if the 49ers win by 7, will not be a good day for the house.
No, and that's one thing you got to watch. I mean, Teddy, does that set up anything like, how do I say this? Like market specific to where there could be value, like what we see in the Super Bowl sometimes with like the money line as the favorite kind of having value, or teaser set up at all, just kind of market specific?
So in general, when we're talking about the further you get into the postseason, the more you see the people betting the favorite lay the points and the people taking the dog on the money line. So the best case scenario for the books in either of these games is likely to be the favorite winning without covering. So Baltimore winning by 1 or 2 and San Fran winning by anywhere from 1 to 6. That's the best case scenario for the books. So we do see the markets make a pretty big adjustment. And it's not the market. I mean, it's the markets are adjusting to the betting public, who at this time of the year, more casual bettors come in and they want to bet on their team to win. That's just the nature of football. So you see it for the Super Bowl, where the best value bet in the Super Bowl is favored on the money line. We do see that this round as well. Yeah, so that's the answer to that question, Drew. I got a ton still to say about both Detroit and San Fran, though. So throw it back to me.
Hey, Teddy Covers. I mean, I can't wait for this game. I mean, Jared Goff heading back, a California guy, played his college football at Cal Berkeley there, heading back near the area, if you will. And a lot of people bringing up home road dichotomy. He started, in LA in a dome, now in Ford Field in a dome, and he hasn't played as well on the road. However, in Levi's Stadium, he has pretty good numbers, Teddy. I believe 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not sure how much all that factors into your handicap, but throwing it back to you, teeing it up here with the Lions trying to punch their ticket in the underdog role into the Super Bowl, up against a tough opponent here in the Niners at home.
Sure. Let's talk about Detroit. Obviously, the Lions got the win and cover against Tampa Bay. The Bucs did the right move. You're down 14. You're supposed to go for 2 in the fourth quarter. Tampa did that. I thought it was an interference on the play. The ref did not think it was an interference in the play, and that was the difference between Detroit covering and not covering. Make no mistake about it. Detroit was not the right side against Tampa Bay. The game was tied after 1. The game was tied after 2. The game was tied after 3. Yards per play. Tampa, 6.8. Detroit, 5.3. So the Bucs, on every snap, outgained the Lions by a yard and a half. Detroit allowed 3 of 3 red zone touchdowns in that ball game. All right, they gave up more than 400 yards of offense. The Bucs had more yards per pass. They had more yards per rush. But Detroit was +2 in turnovers. And that made a pretty big difference in that ball game. And obviously the 2-point conversion that failed for the Bucs allowed Detroit backers to get the money. Look, Gibbs and Montgomery ran the football well against Tampa. They both averaged better than 5 yards per carry. And we saw the 49ers run defense look a little shaky against Green Bay. If Gibbs and Montgomery can run, the Lions are alive. But really, the win over Tampa was Jared Goff. 30 of 43, 287. We talk about Detroit's skill position talent in comparison to San Francisco. And it feels like the prevailing will is, the 49ers, they've got way better. They've got all these weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, Gibbs, Montgomery. Detroit's got some weapons of their own. First time the Lions have won 2 playoff games in a season since 1957. Last time they did that, they won the NFL title. So last time Detroit was in the NFC title game, I remember the game. I was in Michigan at the time. There was all this hype in Detroit, and they got bombed. Washington beat them 41-10. That was over by halftime. Dan Campbell, quote, "I envisioned that we would have a chance to compete with the big boys, and that's where we're at." Goff in that fourth quarter, and Goff was brilliant down the stretch of that game. In that fourth quarter, he really showed up and made some big throws. Lions linebacker Alex Anzalone, the Oregon product, quote, "Not everybody likes to play our type of games. We embrace it. I mean, it's everybody. Our receivers block better than anybody else's receivers. You can just see guys are bought into this style of play." Detroit biting kneecaps. Aiden Hutchinson, 8 sacks the last 4 games. The pass rush has been there. That being said, Detroit's defense still has major issues against the pass. Mike Evans torched in that ballgame. Torched Detroit. 8 catches, 147 yards. The Bucs, 349 passing yards in that game. Puka Nacua had a huge game the week before, 181 yards on 9 catches. There are going to be questions about Detroit's ability to get stops against the San Francisco passing game. That said, why are the Lions here? Baker Mayfield will tell you, quote, "It comes down to minimizing mistakes, and I didn't do that." Jared Goff's quote, worth noting here at the end. Quote, "I don't want to say this arrogantly, but we expected to win the first game in the wildcard round against the Rams. We expected to win this game against Tampa. And now we get to go to a game we expected to be in against a really good team at their place. And we're going to come into it expecting to win. It'll be a tough game, but it'll be fun." Obviously, when you're talking about San Fran, the number 1 passing efficiency offense in football against a Lions pass defense that ranked 30th in EPA allowed per drop back, that may be a problem. But I already talked about Detroit's skill position talent that may be a little underrated in this matchup. In a minute, we'll talk about the key injury for this game and how it is likely to affect the point spread moving forward.
Sure, guys. And looking here at the weather projection, keep in mind we're 6 days out. It does look like high 50s, Teddy, periods of rain with possible wind in the forecast, guys, seeing anywhere from well, 15 miles per hour, and then gusts up to 35 miles per hour. So we'll see if that's a factor as well. There is time before the kickoff, so not sure how accurate that will be, but that's the preliminary look at the weather here. Outdoor stadium for both championship games. Teddy, I guess last looks here, Lions and 49ers.
Well, yeah, I got to talk about the San Fran piece of the equation. I've been trying to. I put my notes today in each team notes, so I can throw back to you. Otherwise, my stupid face is on the screen for way too long, and I don't get a chance to have a sip from my WagerTalk. Go to WagerMerch.com. By the way, WagerMerch.com. If you want to order stuff like this from WagerTalk.com, we got some cool merch. I personally will have no hesitation recommending the coffee mug. So San Fran played a bad game and survived and advanced. Brock Purdy was not accurate. He was off all night. 49ers defense couldn't stop the run. They gave up big plays in the passing game. They had special teams blunders in that contest. And yet, when all said and done, maybe it was the right team at the right time because the Green Bay wasn't ready yet. But San Fran made the plays down the stretch to win the ballgame. Christian McCaffrey, quote, "We're built for those moments. We didn't play well at all, but still had a chance at the end to go out there and execute," is the sign of a high-character team. Brock Purdy, quote, "Obviously it's 4 quarters for a reason, you know? The way I started, it's like, man, I got to be better. Got to play efficient football," and Purdy made the throws when it counted on that final drive. Of course, he finished 23 of 39, 252 yards in the rain. I mean, the rain absolutely affected the game plan for San Francisco. McCaffrey, 17 rushes, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was great. When we talk about San Fran's elite skill position talent, it's only elite when they have Deebo Samuel. When they don't have Samuel, and we're talking about Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings and George Kittle, it's good. It's not any better than Detroit's. You know, during the regular season, they averaged 7.1 yards per play with Deebo Samuel on the field, 5.7 yards per play without him. Deebo Samuel is an impact player. Deebo Samuel got hurt yesterday. We don't yet know his status. But if you're talking about Detroit's clear weakness defensively, they're real good against the run and real bad against the pass. And if San Fran's without their best playmaker downfield, that, in my mind, would be a significant injury because that's the way they can take advantage of Detroit. And, of course, yards per play, I mean, San Fran, 5.6, Green Bay, 9.4, not much of a difference there. They allowed 7 of 13 on third down, even though they converted 10 of their own. They were the only team to win all weekend and not cover. Of course, Dre Greenlaw intercepted that last pass at the end, and he had 101 total yards of distance on his 2 interception returns, only gained 25 yards on him. Greenlaw, who's supposed to go down right there, gave bettors real hope. Of course, if Greenlaw runs that last interception back, it's San Fran and over as opposed to Green Bay and under. He ran around forever. Quote, Fred Warner told me I was supposed to get a pick 6, so, I mean, it was kind of his fault. But, yeah, I know I need to go down. Everyone knew he needed to go down except for Dre Greenlaw and 49ers bettors. Greenlaw finally hit the floor. All that being said, all right, we start talking about San Francisco. Wins and covers since Thanksgiving. Since Thanksgiving. We're not talking about any time new. They beat the Eagles in free fall. They beat the Cardinals. And they beat the Commanders. That's it for wins and covers since Thanksgiving. The 2 best teams they played, the Rams and the Ravens, they lost outright. They didn't sniff a cover against Green Bay. How about this quote from Fred Warner after yesterday's game? Quote, "We feel exhausted. That took everything. It took everyone. We knew it'd be a close game. That's a heck of a team. They gave us everything. We knew we had to find a way to win no matter what." They feel exhausted. They're laying a touchdown. You know, San Fran, 83 yards in penalties. Green Bay only 1 penalty, 5 yards. The team that had fewer penalties covered every game. Worth noting. San Fran, the first team to make the playoffs in the last 13 seasons without overcoming a single second-half deficit to win a game in the regular season. Then they did it against Green Bay. Nick Bosa, quote, "We needed a win like that. We just haven't come from behind in a while." San Fran, I've been thinking about the 49ers board. They've been real good. They've been in all these games. They haven't won a Super Bowl since 1994. Last time they won a Super Bowl, Steve Young threw 3 touchdown passes to Jerry Rice. That's the last time 49ers were able to do this. So, Kyle Shanahan after the game, quote, "We just want to do everything we can to play our best because we feel like we can win every game when we do that. We don't feel like we did that today, but we still found a way to win. I thought that was as big of a mental challenge and just a character game as any game I've been a part of. It was a gut check for everyone, and I couldn't be more proud of the people in there and just how they persevered." So San Fran has survived the gut check game. They've survived we were flat off the bye game. That being said, 7, pretty big point spread against a team that's playing as well as the Lions are right now. Let's see. And again, the Deebo Samuel injury will absolutely affect this number. If Samuel plays, San Fran goes off 7. If Samuel does not play, I don't think they will go off as 7-point favorites. I think it'll be 6.5 or lower. And the first info that I'm seeing today is basically nothing. They don't know yet. Question mark with the shoulder injury. So we will track that injury info throughout the week. And in my mind, it's a big key to the handicap. Don't know if we're going to have that information before kickoff, until before, just before kickoff on Sunday. So it may be a little bit of a difficult game to handicap in that regard, but we'll see what we can find throughout the week in terms of beat writers giving us a little bit of a hint one way or another and see if we can take advantage before the markets do.
Love the analysis there, Teddy. Guys, fire away any questions here at the end. We'll hit a couple of them in the live chat. Also in the comments below for next week's show. Keep in mind, we only got the Super Bowl, so we'll have some extra time next week to hammer out any questions, guys. And I guess last thing here, Lions and 49ers. We get the number 1 overall pick in Jared Goff versus Mr. Irrelevant in Brock Purdy. That's kind of the quarterback matchup there, Teddy. And you kind of touched on this. San Francisco coming back in the second half with Brock Purdy. He put up some good passing numbers. We'll see if he can carry it over. Teddy, we got a couple questions for you from the live chat and from last week's show. I want to start off, though, with the weather aspect here. First game up in Baltimore, it looks like the early look is mid-40s, 10 to 20 mile an hour winds with occasional rain. And San Francisco, just to hit it again here, guys, mid-50s, 15 to 35 mile an hour wind. How does the weather aspect kind of affect your handicap? And does it already at this point in the week affect your handicap, or do you wait until like Thursday, Friday?
So if you see a big storm coming in on Monday or Tuesday, right? The forecasts are all showing it. You can get in front of the line move when you know that bad weather is coming. Really, usually I don't do that till Tuesday. Monday, I don't. When it comes to Monday morning, like your forecast 6 days out are dicey at best. We saw this past week when we have an outdoor game in Buffalo, an outdoor game in Baltimore, and an outdoor game in San Francisco, and the weather absolutely affected the 49ers game. The other two, not so much. Not a ton. People spend a lot of time worried about weather. Every so often, the weather really impacts the game. And lots of times it doesn't. So my advice, I guess, would be don't overreact to weather. Don't worry too much about weather. However, when the weather is real, and sometimes the weather is very real, pay attention, because those are games where nothing is going to go as game planned. And there's a lot more randomness involved when nothing's going to go like game plan. So the occasional crazy weather game you have to be aware of. But in terms of betting stuff on Monday because the weather might be shitty, I don't do that a whole lot.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky handicap in a way, guys. But a couple questions here. Essex, England in the house. Tyrone Boyd as well. Get that parlay. Thanks for joining us live, guys. We got Deep 5588 asking a question here in the comments from last week's show. Teddy, can you shed some light on a specific question I have, please? If you play live lines, how many series do you watch before your analysis tells you Team A is clearly better than Team B? Teddy, one thing I would throw out here is you got to go quick because those lines live in-game, they change very fast. So I wouldn't wait too long. That's my side of the answer. Teddy, what are you thinking about Deep's question here?
Sure. On the other piece of the equation, the one thing that you don't want to do is, there are plenty of teams that come out and go 3-and-out and then have a fine game.
Yeah.
You know, there's always that overreaction, underreaction. You see it all the time where someone comes out and scores a touchdown on the first drive, and then the offense just doesn't work for the next 2.5 quarters. I mean, it happens over and over and over again. But your point about being fairly quick is very real. If you're trying to get the best of the in-game number, and again, when I'm betting in-game, I only want in general, I want a better point spread than I could have gotten before kickoff on either team I'm looking to support. So if I'm looking to the favorite, I want a game where the underdog scores first. I'm looking towards the dog. I want a game where the favorite scores first. As long as I'm getting better than the original number, sometimes I'll fire fairly early, right away. A series or 2, 3. You're not talking about waiting until the second quarter to start making these in-game wagers.
Teddy, one here from Randy Swanson. Thanks for chiming in, Randy. Mahomes, still a good fellas golden boy now to the NFL. Add in the Taylor Swift aspect with Kelsey. Do you factor in any of these off the field? You know, the NFL wants the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl type thing, you know, almost like the NBA when it's game 6, they want the game 7 in the playoffs. It's more money into their pocket just from a business standpoint. Do you factor any of that in, Teddy?
Not much. No. I mean, no. Look, Team A's got to beat Team B on the field. Now, it is worth noting, teams that covered yesterday, all of them had fewer penalties than their opponent. If you think that the league is looking for one side or the other, you're allowed to make a wager that way. But when anyone starts to give me anything when it comes to conspiracy, I'm like, I'm off. You know, because how do I phrase this right? Conspiracy theories are everywhere right now. Our human brains are designed to like conspiracy theories. If someone can tell me before kickoff who the league wants and show their bet slip, oh, I bet this because I know the league wants elsewhere, that's my challenge to all the conspiracy theory. Show me your betting ticket that you made your bet because this game is fixed. And nobody's been able to show me that. Nobody. Not before kickoff. It's always after kickoff. It's always after the results. Oh, that game was fixed. Tell me beforehand what game's fixed and what side it's on and show me your betting slip. Then I'll start to believe some of this stuff. I'm not going to start to believe some of this stuff anyway. No one does it. People complain about losing bets. It is what it is. I don't think the NFL fixes games.
No, I don't either. They don't need to. I mean, they're one of the most successful businesses in the world, really, guys. So to add a little bit of coin in their pocket, it just the risk reward isn't there, TC.
And think about how many people are involved in a conspiracy, all right? If they, if the league wants it, okay? The league wants Kansas City and not Baltimore. I'm just a hyper. They want that. So who's they? Does that come from the top? Does that come from Goodell, or is that further down, the lower they? And how many people do they have to tell before it gets to, who is it? The refs are supposed to make the fix come through. So they have to tell the head of officiating. Where's the chain of command here that no one's going to say anything, Or does just the Roger Goodell just call the ref? I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Teddy, does it work that way in any sport? What about my NBA kind of comments with Tim Donaghy saying, they'll say like, hey, call the game this way to help one team in his book. Do you see it in any sport?
So let me start with this. All right. I'm not friends with him. I've had the guy that wrote not Tim Donaghy's book, but the guy that wrote the book on Tim Donaghy on my show a couple times, when I was, he's someone I've been, I connect with every, I've known him for a little more than a decade because I was fascinated by his book. And basically he says everything Tim Donaghy says on any show is a lie. The guy's an incredible compulsive liar, and everything he's saying is trying to make himself look good and the league look bad. And the whole reason Tim Donaghy used the Sacramento Kings example against the Kings, that Kings-Laker games in 2002 that everyone points to, is because that's the game everyone was already talking about. So he's like, yeah, they'll believe that. Tim Donaghy is a convicted felon and a proven liar. I don't believe anything out of his mouth. He's trying to hype himself and keep himself out of jail. That said, Donaghy's stronger point of the NBA, the refs know who the league wants. I mean, I've heard that 100 times. In that case, it'd be Lakers Celtics every year. We had both those teams in the conference finals last year. Both of them lost, didn't they? I mean, I don't believe that leagues fix games. They don't need to.
Makes total sense, Teddy. Last question here. We got Rob Lynch in the house. Teddy, Goff and Purdy have both shown they're capable of a stinker this season. Any concern for either of these guys? I find it interesting. I would think most kind of bettors out there would kind of rank the quarterbacks, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, then the NFC quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Brock Purdy, in San Francisco being the future favorite, with most people ranking their quarterback last. I find that dynamic just a little bit interesting. I'm not saying it's going to point to the winner, but anything here on Rob's question, Goff and Purdy, any extra worries for those two quarterbacks?
Yeah, more for Goff than for Purdy. We look at these defenses remaining. Kansas City, elite defense. Baltimore, elite defense. San Francisco, elite defense. Detroit, not so much. That's a concern for sure. But we're also talking about two teams in Detroit and San Francisco that are both balanced offensively. And when you can run the football, you can throw the football. If either team can't run the football, it's likely to be a long afternoon.
Teddy, great NFL opening line report getting us ready for Championship Sunday. Both games in the books from an opening line report, standpoint here, guys. But we will have the Super Bowl show next Monday morning, getting you on the right side of some of the moves for the big game. Teddy, I'll throw it back over to you. But guys, remember $5 Appreciation Day on Wednesday. $5 plays. Check it out, WagerTalk.com. Also a lot of free plays up and available. But Teddy, any final thoughts here for OLR before we shut it down?
Yeah, again, we'll do Super Bowl shows. We'll do a pair of Super Bowl shows. One will focus more on props. Next week we'll probably focus more on side and total. We'll do one show the day after the Super Bowl. Talk about the line, the opening numbers for the 2024 season / 2025 Super Bowl. As well as we'll go through all the props. So we've still got 1, 2, 3 more shows after this one before we hit the off season. I hope you'll join us for all 3 of those. Thanks for watching. And again, as Drew says, we really appreciate the likes. More than 140,000 of you have subscribed to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. That number blows me away every time. If you haven't done so, please do it now. And best of luck this weekend. Like I said, we'll be back. I'll be on YouTube. I've been doing it at least twice a week, going back in and checking the comments and replying to as many as I can. Drew's been doing it as well. So please give us your comments in the comment section below, and we're happy to answer. And good luck this weekend, guys.
Well said, Teddy. Guys, that does it for the show. Smash that like button, comment below. He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. We're checking out here. We'll be back next week.